Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are taking a look at yet another of these 2020 Schleich releases, and this is their Baryonyx. This Baryonyx suspiciously has a fairly similar color scheme to the Jurassic World evolution Suchomimus. Not perfect, but definitely a very similar look, and overall has a pretty decent sculpt. It's really cool to see Schleich introducing a Baryonyx to their line for the year of 2020 because I'm not sure that I can recall them ever having one. They may have had one a long time ago, but I don't think I've ever seen it if they do, so it's really cool to see a new species introduced to their line, and a Baryonyx seems to be getting more and more popular as of the last few years. It's been getting a lot more love and a lot more figure releases, so we now have the Schleich version to take a look at here with you guys, so let's go ahead and get a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt, you can see that primarily the overall skull shape and the head sculpt looks really good. Definitely has some very nice scaling to the head area of the figure and some larger scales like scute-like scales right around there. And you can see the nostril is nicely sculpted. You've got kind of like a scute-like appearance that runs up along the ridge of the snout. You've also got a pink coloration around the eye, and that is probably the area of the head that I dislike the most. I think that pinkish color, first of all, the eye paint is really quite sloppy, but secondly, that pink coloration just does not look right, in my opinion, in comparison to the blues and the yellowish type of a striping color and effect they have on this. I just really think that the pink coloration was a very odd choice. This side is also sloppily painted, but at least the pupil looks a little better. But I really don't like the pink on the eyes. I don't understand why they would have gone with a pink that's like the most random color. But again, some people may find that appealing, just not myself. Once we go to the mouth, we have an articulated jaw, and the articulated jaw works really well. You can see it opens to many different distances and actually can go quite wide. That's pretty wide. And the skin flap of the mouth actually goes and stays really nicely present the entire time. It doesn't disconnect from the jaw. Sometimes when you have dinosaurs that have articulated jaws like this and you pull it down, you'll see a little gap up here at the top of like that skin flap, but that does not occur on this Baryonyx at all. That looks really cool. The inside of the mouth is painted with like a pinkish coloration, and then you can see that the tongue is painted with a slightly darker pinkish red type color, and the tongue does have a pretty nice textured appearance. The paint in there is a little sloppy, but nothing really bad, nothing really to be too concerned about. The teeth are of course your typical Schleich teeth. They do have that bulky appearance to them, but I personally don't think they look bad on this figure. I think they look pretty decent, and there's a little bit of sloppy paint to them, but they're not nearly as bad as they were on the Postosuchus. I still think they look pretty good for the most part. You have that really nice hooked jaw of the Baryonyx present, so that is also a plus as far as the sculpting of the head goes. As we get back into the neck, you can see that really nice scaling continues, and up on the top of the head, you can see kind of like a little bit of that crest, that Baryonyx crest that we're used to seeing. You can see that right there. And then once you get to about here, you can see that it kind of almost gets like an armored scute-like appearance down the neck. There's lots of creases and kind of like a little bit of an armored appearance to it, and that continues to run the entire length of the spinal column all the way out onto the tail, if my camera would focus on this poor Baryonyx. So if we come back up onto the neck, you can see lots of creasing in the skin as we lead down the neck, and lots of really fine skin texture, beautiful scaling. There's also some pretty nice detail and a little bit of hanging loose skin in the throat right there. There isn't really much going on as far as color difference. Primarily, the figure is just this one solid blue, and then has these yellow spots and kind of stripes that kind of litter the body and also run down along the spinal column, and that's about it. There isn't really any color variation other than maybe the nails, teeth, and eyes on the figure at all, and of course the inside of the mouth, but I feel like there could have been a little bit more color tones and stuff included in the figure to make it have a little bit more of a lifelike appearance. The paint on this one specifically, I feel, is a little bit lazy, but it still doesn't look bad. It still looks pretty decent. It just maybe like some colors on the underbelly would have helped as well. When we get down here into the arm, you can see kind of the skin really nicely stretching off of the body, really portraying the movement of the animal beautifully right there. I think that looks great, especially considering the Baryonyx has its hand out pretty far, like it's reaching out to grab a hold of something almost, and it really shows the movement of what would be going on with the skin right there quite nicely. Really beautiful sculpting of the skin texture on the arm and hand as well. You've got those very nicely painted nails. They don't look too sloppy or anything. For the most part, they look pretty good. I like the coloration of the nails as well, and that trademark larger Baryonyx claw is present. When we get back up into the stomach region, you can see lots of skin kind of folding and bending and kind of just wrinkling all over the body. I think it looks really nice, even down here in the lower part of the stomach. Definitely a beautiful sculpt as far as showing the movement of the animal, and I think the skin bunching up just shows the leg movement as well. Once you get up here onto the top of the back, you can see some osteoderms that run the length of the dinosaur as well. You can again see the skin stretching and pulling and bunching up all over the place. In the thigh area, it looks really, really nice. Lots of creases in the skin as well. Beautiful sculpt work on the Baryonyx for sure. As we get down here into the calf area, you can see a very nicely defined calf muscle, and again some more skin wrinkling, skin folding right there. And we get down into the foot. The foot looks pretty good. Nothing overly crazy, nothing really amazing to look at, but it's definitely a fairly nice looking foot sculpt, and you've got the really nicely painted nails again. Maybe a little bit of sloppiness on that one, but it's nothing really bad. You can see the dew claws are sculpted out there, and I really do like the color of the nails. I think that was a really good choice. Then as we get back up into the tail is stretched quite far, and it's curved quite far to the left of the animal, and then you can see how nicely stretched the skin is because of it. So Schleich really did a great job overall on paying attention to the fine detailing of the figure and really showing the movement of the animal beautifully. I feel like that is one thing that Schleich does excel at most times when it comes to their sculpts. Every so often they have one that's kind of a miss when it comes to that, but so far with the Postosuchus and now this Baryonyx, they've really beautifully portrayed movement in their figures this year, and I think that looks fantastic. As we lead back out the tail, you can see lots of creases again in the skin and some really nice skin texture the entire way out till we get to the tail. The yellow does taper off, and then the tip of the tail is just a bluish color, similar to the rest of the body. When looking at the opposing side, you can again see that the skin detail in the neck is really beautiful. Lots of really nice creasing in the skin as we run down the neck. Unfortunately, if you look at the underside of the jaw, you can see some of the pink from the inside of the mouth, so if you open it to about that point, it covers that up. If you are putting this out for display purposes and don't mind the pink, then you can keep the mouth closed, but if you do mind that pink, you can just open it to about there, it disappears. However, I really don't think anybody's going to be crawling under your Baryonyx's head to take a look at that regardless. Once we get down into the arms, you can again see how nicely done the movement is in the shoulder area. You can take note of the shoulder blade there, but you can also see that the skin isn't stretching as violently as you saw on the opposing side. As this arm here is reaching out, this one is not, so the skin looks a little bit more at ease. Really nice sculpting as far as the fine details go from Schleich. Beautiful musculature in the arms and really nice skin texture as we lead down into the hands. You can see the nails on this side are a little bit sloppier painted, as the nail paint from the large Baryonyx claw has actually run up onto the knuckles of the hand, which is a little bit of a downside, but it is what it is, I guess. You can actually see how nicely sculpted out the palm of the hand is as well. Really beautiful sculpt work for sure. As we go back into the body, you can see the skin stretching a little bit right here in the lower part of the stomach region. As this leg isn't pushing forward, it's pulling the skin a little bit. So once again, really showing what I said about how beautiful of a job Schleich is doing this year when it comes to really portraying the movement of their figures. You could just see so much going on in the stomach region alone as far as the way the skin is reacting to the animal moving. It looks absolutely phenomenal. You've got the hip bone right there, and again those osteoderms run down the neck and then along the back area and out onto the tail. You've got really beautifully defined musculature in the thigh and calf region, and again really nice creases in the skin as the dinosaur does have its leg bent a little bit there. Very nice kneecaps up here in the front, and then we get down to the foot sculpt, and the foot sculpt looks good once again. The nails look to be painted pretty nicely over here. Again, a little bit of sloppiness, but nothing too terrible. And then we get up into the tail. You can see lots of creasing in the skin and everything right there. As we run out the rest of the tail, you can see how really beautiful the skin texture is. Lots of creasing in the skin, and those osteoderms continue. And you can also kind of see the skin folding a little bit here the further out you get into the tail, as it does have quite a nice curve. So the sculpt and detail of this Baryonyx is definitely really, really nice. As far as the size goes on our Baryonyx, from the snout to the tail, you are looking at about 9.5 inches or 24 centimeters. And for a height, highest point's probably about the neck, so about 4¼ inches or around 11 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, Robert Muldoon, and the Attack Pack Colovosaurus next to our brand new 2020 Baryonyx from Schleich, and you can definitely see next to these figures that it does have some pretty good size, definitely a decent sized Baryonyx, and probably the biggest figure so far of the year from Schleich, or one of the biggest. I would say potentially the biggest when it comes to overall body mass, but you can definitely see next to these three figures right here that it does have some pretty decent size. So this 2020 Schleich Baryonyx is definitely pretty darn nice. I do quite like it. The sculpt may be not the most perfect and most scientifically accurate Baryonyx you're ever going to see, but it is still quite appealing in my opinion. I really do quite like it. I think that all the very fine detailing of the figure is definitely there, really beautifully showing all the movement exactly where it would be happening when it comes to skin stretching and skin folding and everything. It's very similar to the Postosuchus from Schleich that I reviewed a few days ago when it comes to really beautifully portraying every ounce of movement that could possibly be happening in the dinosaur at that exact time. Schleich is very, very good at portraying movement in their sculpts, and you can see that continuously when it comes to these figures so far. I really think that they did a great job overall on the pose as well. It's nothing special, it's just kind of standing there looking kind of at ease, but at the same time one hand appears to be reaching out, so maybe if I opened the mouth and gave it kind of a little bit of a ferocious look, it could look like it's about to reach down and grab a fish or something from a stream or a pond, something like that. Has sort of an appearance like it's about to reach for something, so it's a pretty cool appearance as far as the pose goes. I do quite like it. Nothing crazy, nothing over the top, but still really quite nice. The paint application isn't really that great. It's probably the biggest downside to the figure. I think that the pink around the eye isn't really that good. It's kind of just obnoxious, honestly, to look at. I'm not a big fan of the pink. I think the inside of the mouth and the teeth look pretty decent. The blue coloration that is the primary body color is definitely a decent color choice, and I also do kind of like the pattern that they've gone with when it comes to this yellow spot and striping thing they have going on. I am unfortunately very sad to see that they did not include the wash that Schleich does include from time to time on their figures. We saw it on the Postosuchus, but it is not present here on the Baryonyx, and I think that kind of kills the figure a little bit. It could have really made a lot of the detail jump out at you and pop out at you if they had included that wash, and at the same time kind of given it a little bit of an appearance of color variation, but they chose not to include the wash, which is definitely upsetting. The blue as well is just one tone. There are no real tones of color to the figure. The yellow is one tone, the blue is one tone, and that's pretty much all we get. So maybe a little more color variation as far as color tones and skin tones could have also been a really big help on the overall appearance factor of the figure. However, regardless, even with the sort of lazy paint application, it is still a pretty darn nice Baryonyx, and I do recommend anybody interested in picking one up to do just that. So I will link you in the description to Dejankins.com, where you can go ahead and purchase one for yourself right now. So make sure you head down there to the description, click the link to follow it straight over to the Dejankins page with this Baryonyx, and pick yourself up this very nice looking 2020 Schleich Baryonyx. But before you do that, don't forget to please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.